So this is what you're gonna imagine they lived in when they ran the store. We've had to restructure this building, so it was not kept like this since 1872 when the president was born here. So anything that looks old as far as the actual structure is not the original. However, all the furniture is. This was all equipment and furniture that they had when they lived here, that when they moved, they took across, and no one decided to throw it out, so it was all kept for posterity. The president himself was born in the bed we have here on July 4th, 1872. Mother and father were running the store, and you can see the little corridor that leads back to the store. They only lived here till the president was 4, and then they got enough money so that they could afford something bigger, and they moved across the street after they bought the house. So you see a lot of the furniture is baby furniture, it's child furniture. You have high chairs and little rockers, and there's a doll on the bed that belonged to his sister Abigail. And if you wonder about Abigail, she was 3 years younger than the president, but never lived beyond 15 because she died of what they thought was appendicitis. There were a couple bedrooms upstairs that as the children got older, but since they left here when the president was 4, most likely he might have been up there, but I doubt if the 1-year-old was up there. She was still too little.
Did they rent this property out part of the general store?
Well, whoever was running the store, this was all part of the rental.
Okay.
So you could use this for, I think they used it for storage.
Right.
At one point, they opened up a little cafe here again because of the crowds that were coming. Once he took the oath of office in the house across the street, the place became overnight famous. And people would just come out of curiosity to see what was going on here. Well, nothing was going on here. I mean, there weren't any public buildings. The only thing that you could do is go into the general store. And so, again, the person decided, well, they need a place to sit down and have coffee. And there were people who sold little knickknacks and souvenirs. The streets were all mud or dirt because we were back in the 1920s when he took the oath of office. And cows would go down the middle of the street, or you had manure down the middle of the street. It was a mess. And in fact, as people looked at their village, certain groups said, now we've got to do something. We've got to spruce it up so that we don't present this mud mire, quagmire of a place. And I think that's when the state more or less got a little involved because they asked for help. They said, can you give us help? Because, he is famous and he's making our state famous. Maybe a little bit of funds to help us create a commission that will spruce up the buildings, maybe paint them or something along those lines. And so I think that's where the Vermont Historic Preservation Commission could have had a little bit of a start because of what happened here. So if you've seen enough, we'll walk over to the other building, which is the larger place where they moved. The stove was the only source of heat, as well as cooking.
So in the winter they lived in there?
Yeah, more. You think so, because that was the only place they could get hot. As we walk over to the main house, there's a building way in the back of this big house that we're approaching. Kind of farm buildings that belong to the grandparents. Purposes. And this is the way they would have brought the horse here again. And then once they actually got in here, if you step in, you'll see the continuity occurs because it opens into a tool shed, finally a wood shed, and then onto the main house, so you don't have to go outside at all. It's all attached. Yeah, stalls are there. They would have kept hay overhead, which they could then drop down as the horses were being fed. The saddle was one that the president used when he rode his horse. All this equipment and items were saved by the family, and specifically the housekeeper. She was, in many years, the only person who was living here. This particular carriage was made by the father. He worked with a carriage maker. It's not like that he had innate ability, but he could be told how to make something, and that was the finished product.
Very lucky to have all that stuff that you made, aren't you?
Yes, yes. And the housekeeper made a point of, letting the family know, we can't change things. We don't want to do something that's going to destroy what we had here for a story. And to the point where when the president finished his presidency, he was going to spend some time up here, but he didn't live up here. He was still down in Northampton, Massachusetts. So he wanted a place that was a little more with heat, electricity, running water, and so he could kind of relax and do his memoirs and stuff. And the housekeeper wouldn't let him change the main house. So he put on a little addition on the back end, on the far end, as I'm standing here and pointing in that direction, which we don't have on now, but which was there when the house was donated in 1956. It had this little addition on there. Well, that was taken off by the state at the request of the family, moved by way of whatever conveyance you move a house or a part of a house around the corner, and it started or ended up on a hillside as I'm pointing. The main farm is through that window, and the other house is through that other window, and they still belong to the Coolidge family. Now, the little addition that got taken off and put over there was added to over the years, so it's a bigger house now.